Well, my cats, when we first got our cats, both of them had stomach issues, so we had to adjust their diet. Their current diet is raw food diet, which turns out to be less expensive because we just buy drumsticks, like human grade, drumsticks. They can be from 70 cents to $1.29 per pound, but that's actually a lot of meat. That's a lot of nutrients. So we figure that for every 2 weeks we spend about $13 on drumsticks for the cats. So for a month it's less than $30 for a month for both cats. So that's not too bad. I think that's comparable to actual cat food.
Oh yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, but the diet change, also caused, all kinds of, really observable results. Like, most people know that cat poop is really stinky. Not if they eat raw food.
Oh, really?
If they eat raw food, I have found cat poop on the carpet, and they go like, that looks like cat poop to me, but I cannot smell it. Normally, I can smell it like from far away. Okay, I can tell. Okay, something is not right in this house. And I was looking at that cat poop, like, that looks like cat poop, but it doesn't smell at all, not at all. So somehow the diet change caused.
At what age did you change their diet? When they were young? Or?
Yeah, when they were probably about 5 months.
We were gonna try raw food, and I don't think it'll work for these guys now because they're so old. It's like if it's not kibble, they're like.
Well, you never know. Mine they'll switch over just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One lick, sold.
You know what it is? It's gotta smell good for these cats. If it doesn't smell good, they don't want it.
They are. Yeah, it's strange because one time I ran out of chicken drumsticks, and so I had to go out and actually buy raw food instead of making my own. And the raw food that you can buy at the pet store, some of those are lamb based, okay. And I personally really like lamb chop and lamb anything, but the cats look at that that little tablet thing and go like, nope, not going to eat that. They were really hungry, but they decided no, lamb is not my thing.
Like food, huh?
No, they don't. They didn't like the taste of lamb at all. Picky eaters. All right, so let's go ahead and start the class. And the first thing I want to do is to kind of address the question that you had yesterday. The other day on Monday.
Do you have the recorder on?
I believe so. I'm just double checking to make sure the recorder is on, the mic is on, so everything is good. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just do a new project just for that purpose. So we'll start a new project and call that just Delta, okay? Well, Delta is the name of the app because we're just trying to figure out what is the difference between 2 times, okay? Okay, so Delta is a very simple app, doesn't do a whole lot. Has got a label, it's got a button to trigger operations, and it's got a clock, okay, because we need to track time. So we go to sensors and put in a clock. There we go. All right. So what we want to do, is not, I don't even need a timer to be firing. Okay, so we turn off the timer. So in the blocks, all I want to do is to, hold on. There's a little bit more. I need a time picker and also a date picker. Okay, so we'll at least need a time picker because a date picker is not necessary in this case. Okay, so here's a time picker. We'll just go ahead and change the text. Okay. Pick a time, okay, and then the button is going to say compute time delta between now and the time that you pick, and then the label is just going to reflect that number, okay. So that's the entire interface. So now we just have one single, we got one single thing to do, okay, with a button. We have to do something. So the idea of this application is to figure out the duration between the time that you specify and the current time, which is known as now, okay? So let's go ahead and figure out how we can do that. So because it's object-oriented programming, we have to say, okay, which object is going to do this? So the first thing we can say is we are updating the label ones, the text of label one. So we say set label one text to something. And that something is going to be the duration between two instances of time. So we go to clock, and then we go to one of the blocks here that can compute the duration between two times, two instances. So this is the one. Okay, so I'm just going to hover here a little bit. It will show you, or it will return the number of milliseconds that has elapsed between the two instances. One is the start, which is supposed to be an earlier time, and the other one is end, which is supposed to be a later time. So we'll go ahead and pick out this block and stash it over here. And the start is going to be now. Okay, I just want to use the current time as the start. So we go to clock, and then we pick out the now, which is one of the blocks down here. There we go. And if I hover over this, it says the current instant in time read from phone's clock. Okay, so we'll pick out this one to be the start. Now the end is something that I want to use the time picker to specify, and I'm not going to put the date in it. Okay, so I think if you only specify the time without the date, it will assume it is today. That's my assumption. Okay, so in order to do that, we have to use make instant from, which is this one. Okay, so when you read the text or the help, the instant help, it says an instant in time specified by. There are three alternate formats. Okay, the first one is month, year, month, day, year, hour, minute, second. That's one format. The second one is just month, day, year, and then the last one is just hour, minute. Okay, so I'm going to pick the last one. Just use the hour and minute to specify a particular time, and those I'm going to get out of my time picker. Okay. So time picker is a user interface element that can give you, oh, guess what? It can give you an instant. Okay, which is way easier to deal with. So I can just use this and pick the instant specified by the time picker, and then we can compare the difference between the two.
Yeah, I did the join with the
Okay, did it work?
I didn't try it.
You didn't try it? Okay, but this one may work a little bit easier. But if you have to store the time in a file or inside the TinyDB, you probably still need to convert it back into an instant based on the hour and the minute. Okay. All right, so this is the entire app. That's all I'm going to do. We'll build it and test it. So we'll go ahead and build the APK, and while it is doing this, I'm going to start up the Android Studio. And then somewhere else, I will go to the SDK folder. Okay, go to the, nope, not this one. There we go. Platform tools. Devices. And we got the device attached. Now we could switch back to the browser. Okay, let me close this one. It's not for this class. And let's save the file to downloads. It's called Delta. So adb install -r downloads Delta. APK. All right, so the moment of truth, right? So we observe the time, it is current, okay? This is the actual current time. And then we click the Delta application, and we use the time picker to select the time, okay? So let's pick a time in the future. So we just say, okay, let's specify 10:50 as the time, compute the difference. So this one, that doesn't look right to me.
Milliseconds.
It's still way too much as milliseconds. it is still way too much. I think it's off by many years. So that's definitely not working. All right. So if that is not working, let's check out. What this is actually returning. The instant of the last time set using the time picker. But this doesn't have a date associated with it, which may be the problem. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this, and instead we'll compute, use another way to compute it. So we go to clock. There's a way to compute an instant based on a string. So you can say, millisecond, you make instant from. Okay, so we'll basically make it from a string using the hour and the minute. Go to text and use the join operation to join three things. The first one is going to be the hour of the time picker. So we go to the hour of the time picker. The second one is really just a single colon symbol to separate the hour from the minute. And then the third one is the actual minute. So we duplicate this one and specify the minute in this case. Okay. So we'll try this new other method and see if it works better. So build. Somehow I think without the date, it would assume it is going to be on 1970 January 1st. So you will need to specify the date in order to compare against the current time, which is now. But we'll see. We'll figure it out. Save file and reinstall and run it again. So once again, pick out the time. Let's make it 50. Compute the time difference. It's still way off. So it's basically it's that time, but on 1970 January 1st, which is probably not what you want to compare to. So what you need to do then is to specify the day of today. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix this. Okay, let's see if we can. Or do you want to use a time picker or date picker to specify the day that you want to compare to? Pick.
Might as well do date and time.
Okay, we'll do day and time then. So we will specify a date picker right here, and we switch the prompt and say specify a date. Okay. Go to the blocks. So now the join operation is going to be a bit longer because we'll need some extra stuff, because we need to specify the day, which is a whole bunch of stuff, because we have okay, let me double check. Make instant from. Okay, so it needs month / day / year space and then hour, minute, and then second. So we need 6 things ahead and then 3 and then 2 things after. Okay, there we go. So we'll, can I cancel this? Yep. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need 1 more thing before, and then we need 2 more things after. I don't think I can do that very easily now. Okay. So I can readjust things a little bit, over here. So we now go to the date picker and specified, was it year first? Year, month, day, I think? Or was it month, day, year?
I think it was month, day, year.
Okay, let me double check. Yep, month, day, year. That is so American. All right, so we'll go to the date picker, pick out the month. Okay, so we go to the month, and then we specify a slash, and then we specify day, another slash, and then specify the year. I cannot see it because it's off the screen. It's down here. Okay, and then we need to specify a space to separate the date from the time. So the hour goes here, the colon goes here, the minute goes here, and then we need one extra colon to specify the second. The time picker may or may not have a second. Nope, does not specify a second. Okay, that's fine. We can always specify just 00 for the second. There we go. And this last slot is not useful. Well, I really don't want to delete it. I just need to specify, nothing as an empty string. So that's as good as, getting rid of it. Okay, so then we now have month, day, year separated by slashes, and then hour, minute, and second separated by colons, which should satisfy the requirement of make instant from. And we'll go ahead and give it a try. So go build. So after this, unless there are additional questions about the applications, I will talk about how to publish your app. Okay, so what process do you have to go through, and what kind of stuff do you have to consider if you want to publish your app. So there we go. Switch back to here. Install, and give it a try.
I guess one additional question would be,
yeah.
When the countdown, when the time occurs, can you make it vibrate?
Yes. So you can specify a date. It's already set to the current date. Okay, that's good. And the time is set to the current time. I just want to add like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to it, and then compute the time difference. Oh, that is still way, way, way wrong. And you can see, how the second is changing, but this is definitely not right. Okay, so we have a problem here. Okay. So it must have something to do with the way I format the string. No, I don't want to stop the. It's gonna do it. Click the wrong thing. Okay, so make instant from, it doesn't seem to be working. Specify month, year, month. Oh, okay. My bad. Month, day, year. Okay, that is correct.
Oh, I did notice when I was doing the dates that it didn't put the preceding 0 on months, like on the days and months. It didn't make it 01, it just made it 1.
And that caused a problem?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, let's look up the help file of that thing. So we'll go to a clock and actually look up the details from here. Okay, so the default the acceptable patterns are empty string for this. Okay, and let's look up make instant. This one specified by month, day, year. This implies it has to be 2 digits for each one, and then hour, minute, second. An example, okay, yeah, so it does use a leading 0. And I think if I do it the other way, it doesn't do the leading 0. Let me see if there's a quick way to format it using the time picker itself and also the date picker. Okay, so when we look into a date picker, it has got set date to display, set date to display from instant, and looking at the properties, month, show feedback, text, visible, width, and year. So it doesn't seem to have any way to include leading zeros, which may be a problem. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and do something slightly different. Okay, so we'll go back here. Disable this block, and then just duplicate this block here. Actually, we can duplicate the entire block. So duplicate the whole block. I'm just going to test something here. And enable this block. All I want to do is to show me what is the time format. That's all. So until I get the time format correct, then it's not going to work. So I just wanted to make sure that my time format is done correctly. So let's do it again. How many times have you used a web form where they ask you to enter a date and you forget to put in a leading 0 and it says it's not okay? Even with a web form? No one has encountered that sort of thing? Delta. Okay, specify a date, current date, pick a time, pretty much the current time, and click it. So 11/30/2016, is there a space in between here? Between the 6 and the 10? It doesn't look like it. Maybe that's the issue. Okay, so the space is supposed to be here. Let me see if I can move the cursor. Yep, I cannot move the cursor, which means there was no space here. So that may be the issue. Double check again. There is a space now. Okay, here there's no space, which is good. Okay.
You have to put that back in the.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to test it again. Yep. As it turns out, today's date doesn't have that issue.
Yeah, I put little, just little, I don't know what they're called, the procedure if statements within my join that say if the length is less than 1, then add a 0 to it.
Mm-hmm. You have to do that to the day too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Can you make a function call it validate date or something?
Or you can just have a function to always pad a number to have a certain number of zeros.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back here. Test it one more time. Yep, so this time definitely have a space. So now we go back to this app here and put this thing back to the other part. Okay, get rid of that. And put this back here. Re-enable the whole block. There we go. Okay, App Inventor is unable to compile this project. Okay, preparing, and the error is set and coerce property has too few arguments. 3 must be 4.
You still have a block? Yeah, the block.
I don't see. Oh, you mean this one? I don't know. That doesn't seem like the kind of error that should be generated. Oh, okay. Looks like it compiled this time. Okay. Try one more time. Today, the current time, add 1 minute to it. Compute. Yes. So that worked. All right. So the approach works. You just have to be careful with your time format. Now, let's go ahead and pick out a date that does require a leading 0, like December 1st, and see if it works. I think that works. By comparing that, okay, let's figure out what this number is. This is the number of milliseconds in a day, and that looks about right to me. The number of seconds in a day is 86400. So by having 3 more zeros, I think that sounds about right. Let's double check. Hate to be wrong with these simple math. Okay, so I'm just computing the number of milliseconds in a day just to make sure that that part is done correctly. So there are 24 hours in the day. Each hour has 60 minutes. Each minute has 60 seconds. And that's 86400. So when you multiply 1,000 to this for milliseconds, that's the number that we saw, okay, or close to the number that we saw. So I think that's correct. Is that okay? All right. Did you have another question?
Oh, when the countdown, the timer goes off.
Oh, okay, right. So let's go ahead and pick an earlier time, a time that is earlier than today, or a date that is earlier than today. Well, and see what happens to this time. It should be negative, and there you go. Negative by 1 day, close to. So it does work in both directions. So you can tell whether you have passed the scheduled time by looking at the sign of the duration between 2 instances. All right, cool. Now I have another experiment to do. If I just specify the time, was it really using January 1st, 1970 as the default date? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that part. So we want to specify all the way back to 1970. because it's Linux. And we have to specify January 1st. Oh, it actually allowed me to specify earlier than that, which is kind of odd.
So way back. I go back to like 1920.
Yeah, that looks like the number that we saw earlier.
I think it is.
Yep. But how come? So it must have a different way of representing time now, because most of the time it doesn't want to deal with time, a date before 1970, but this one seems to be okay with that. All right. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's all good? All right. So we can now get back to the originally scheduled topic, which is one thing that we really haven't really gone over a whole lot, which is how to publish your app. Okay. So getting started with publishing. The first thing is you have to register for a Google Play Publisher account, and I'm not going to do that because I have an account already, so I cannot really go through the whole new process, and it will ask you to pay $25. I don't want to pay $25 for every semester, to go through this process. Okay, so this is the console. Okay, I can at least get you through as much as I can, but without having to pay for that account. Okay. So the first one is you have to read and agree to the Google Play Developer Distribution Agreement, and most people just click it. Right? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
It's a good idea when it doesn't really matter. Okay. But if you are actually publishing, and you're a developer, you might want to just kind of go to this document and see, okay, what exactly is the agreement, okay? So it has a whole bunch of definitions and the introduction, accepting this agreement, pricing and payment, okay? Products are displayed to users on your behalf at prices you establish in your sole discretion. Google may include applicable taxes in the price charged to user on the store. You may set the price for your products in the currency permitted by the payment processor. Google may display the price of products for users in their native currency, but it is not responsible for the accuracy of currency rate or currency conversion. This part is important. Developer is responsible for determining if a product is taxable and the applicable tax rate for the payment processor to collect for each taxable jurisdiction where products are sold. Now, why is this important?
Tax fraud?
Tax fraud, okay, but what if someone is just, has never done something like this, wrote an app, it's sold like, hotcake, and instantly make $40 million over a week. Okay, just put yourself into the shoe of a developer, okay? Can be yourself, okay? Who's making $40 million over a week, okay? So what are you going to do once you have those $40 million in your bank? Spend it, right? Because especially if the nice thing of doing this rather than winning the lotto is people do not know that you have this much money, right? Because otherwise, people would know, would be like, hey, Tack, remember me from like 40 years ago? I was in the same class, when you were in elementary school or something like that, and I'm trying to start a business, So, but people won't be bothering you. But if you have $40 million, okay, so some people will go down to Highway 1 or go to Monterey and try to buy a property, right? It's like, okay, your $40 million should get me something, even if it is on the 22-mile drive or 21-mile drive? In Monterey. That's like where all the really wealthy people live in Monterey.
17 miles.
Huh?
17
17-mile drive. Okay, the 17-mile drive, and you can look up, Zango and find out, how expensive those houses are. Okay. But let's say you spend that money. So you spend that money, okay? You spend, the 30 out of $40 million that you make out of the apps, okay? What's going to happen at the end of the year? Yes, you have to do a tax return, right? So let's say that you're even with $40 million, you're still too cheap to go for an actual accountant or a tax preparer. So you decide to buy, TurboTax or do TurboTax online, okay? So TurboTax says, okay, did you sell anything this year? Yeah, I sold a lot of app. How much money did you make? $40 million. Was any tax deducted, as you make your money? No, I didn't click any options like that. So TurboTax will instantly display how much you owe, at the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You look at that number and go like, well, that's about $20 million. So you'll be owing IRS $20 million, even if you withheld. Okay, even if you had $20 million and can pay off the taxes, you will still have a fine, okay? Because if you owe more money than a certain amount, and by the end of the year, the IRS will still charge you a penalty. Is that making any sense? Sort of? So if you're making a lot of money, you have to pay your taxes as you go. You cannot owe the IRS $20 billion and then just pay that at the end of the fiscal year. That doesn't work with the IRS. They will stick you a pretty hefty fine for doing that. So that's why this particular statement is very important. You have to figure out how much you have to pay IRS and how much you have to pay the franchise tax board, which is California tax. Yep.
You can't just pay the IRS $20 million?
I think you cannot. Now, a normal person like us, okay, who's not making too much money, okay, so the most I can owe the IRS, let's say it's $4,000, okay, $4,000 or $5,000. So that's not going to trigger the penalty. But if you owe the IRS too much money, that will trigger a penalty.
Is it because you can make so much interest on that kind of thing?
Yes. Yep, that's exactly it. So if you're making more than a certain amount of money, you have to pay your taxes as you go.
When you sell your house, right?
Selling your house is a little bit different. You have to ask your realtor.
17th Avenue or whatever.
Yes, then you have to sell your house.
You should just get a mortgage.
Hmm?
Just mortgage your house so you can borrow to pay your taxes.
Yeah, you have to do something. I know someone, actually one of my friends, did not pay the taxes correctly, and it took him like 4 years to pay off the, that particular thing. Okay. So developer is responsible for remitting taxes to the appropriate taxing authority where Google, the payment processor, or the authorized carrier is required by applicable legislation to determine, apply, and pay the applicable tax rate. So basically, the taxing part is really your responsibility. Google may do a part of it as required by law. Okay, and stuff that is bold-faced is probably important. Okay, you support your product. Buyers are instructed to contact the developer concerning any defects or performance issues in applications downloaded and installed from Google Play. You will be solely responsible for, and Google will have no responsibility to undertake or handle support and maintenance of your products or any complaints about your products. You must apply and maintain valid and accurate contact information, and so on and so forth. You must respond. Okay, this is the part that is kind of interesting. So Google is requiring the developer to respond to customer support inquiries within 3 days and within 24 hours to any support or product concern stated to be urgent by Google. Okay, so with any rules like this, the bigger question is, what if I don't? Which is probably the next sentence. Failure to provide adequate information or support for your products may result in low product rating. Okay, that part there does not concern most people. Less prominent product exposure, low sales, billing dispute, or the last one is probably the most important one, is removal from the store, the Play Store. In other words, Google is reserving its rights to say that if you do not support the product properly, Google will have the right to remove it from the Play Store.
Which makes sense.
It makes sense, but this was not there in the earlier days of the Play Store, and that made one big difference between the iOS apps versus the Android apps.
Oh, they don't have this in iOS?
Oh, iOS,
Don't care.
Apple polices the apps like Nazis.
What you mean?
They don't like it for any reason, they will pluck
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So they had it before, yeah?
it. They-
Before.
Yeah, iOS always had a clause of, Apple
Okay.
can choose and pluck your app for whatever reason it sees fit. So
Okay.
at least with Google, it's giving you a valid reason. It's like, if you
Yeah.
don't support your product, it looks bad on our store, then we're gonna remove it.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah, there are apps that get removed from the iOS, or the Apple Play. They don't call it the Play Store. They call it
App Store.
the App Store of Apple. Like somebody made an Android magazine app,
Mhm.
and have it available through the Apple Store, and then Apple pluck it. It's like, no, you're not going to advertise for our competing products.
Competitive.
It's like, wow, even for that they will remove the app.
I heard they will like publish if you have like beta in the title, or if you imply that the product is still under development. on
For
Apple.
iOS or for
For
Android?
the App Store for iOS.
For iOS, they can plug your app for whatever reason they see fit. Just look up, historically, just look up what kind of apps got pulled from the Apple Store, and you will see that it's just whatever they see fit. They don't give you a particular reason. Authority to refund. You authorize Google to give the buyer a full refund of the price of a product or in-app transaction on your behalf if the buyer requests the refund at any time within 48 hours after purchase. Okay, so this is actually a provision that Google is trying to enforce. Okay, if somebody buys your app, okay, within 48 hours, if that person says, "I want a refund," you have to provide the refund. Now, that may or may not be a good thing. Okay, this is not a good thing because some people may decide, I only need this app for 24 hours. Okay, so I'll buy the app, install it, use it for 24 hours, and then I ask for a refund. It's kind of like, you have a LAN party, and then you decide you go to Fry's, you buy the most expensive, the most powerful gaming machine, you go to the LAN party, and then when you're done, you go back to your Fry's and you return the computer.
I know people that have done that.
I know people who turn back their TV set a year after they purchased it. It was broken, and without receipt, they just gave it back.
At Fry's?
No, I mean
Costco would do it.
store, Yeah,
Yeah, Costco
store.
would do it.
Like 1 year. They use it whole year.
Well, but I have had genuine product failure like after 2 years, and Costco will still take it back. But this is 48 hours. Okay, this is only 48 hours. So it may or may not be reasonable, but if you are selling your app, you have to be prepared for that. Okay, I think the worst thing that can possibly happen is you have a super killer app, and you sell $40 million of that app, and you spend that money within 48 hours, and then everybody demands a refund, then you can get into really big trouble because of that.
Wait 48 hours.
And on top of that, you did not spend the $40 million, to buy a house, at the 17-mile drive, which you can probably sell and get a good portion back, right? You basically lose all $40 million in the casino. So there's nothing left. Okay. If you buy like a $40 million diamond, okay, at least you got something you can sell back, okay, maybe at half the price. But if you lose it in gambling, that's it. reinstalls. Okay, users are allowed unlimited reinstalls of each product distributed through the store, provided, however, that if you remove a product from the store pursuant to clauses 1, 2, 3, or 4 of section 7.1, such products should be removed from all portions of the store, and users shall no longer have the right or ability to reinstall the affected products. Okay, so we would check out the prohibited actions. You agree that you will not engage in any activity with the store, including the development or distribution of products that, okay, so we'll read this part really carefully, interferes with, disrupts, damages, or accesses in an unauthorized manner of the devices, servers, networks, or other properties or surfaces of any third party, including but not limited to Android users, Google, or any mobile network operators. Okay.
No botnet.
So basically, yes, yeah, a botnet would basically definitely fit these descriptions. You may not use customer information obtained from the store to sell or distribute products outside of the store. So you can still use it, but you have to basically stay within the store if you want to use customer information you obtained from the store. Okay. Are there any questions about this particular part? No questions? Okay. Now the next one is kind of important too. You may not use the store to distribute or make available any product that has a purpose that facilitates the distribution of software applications and games for use on Android devices outside of the store. In other words, you cannot, in one of your apps, you can say, click this link to download an APK file. Because you're trying, that will bypass the store. Okay? Now, if it's not free for sure, this will be a problem. If it is free, it doesn't make a provision that being free is an exemption to this particular rule. Restricted content is one big one too. Any product you distribute on the store must adhere to the developer program policies. And there are certain things about certain contents that some people have to kind of worry about. Okay, restricted content is one. Intellectual property, deception, and spam is the other one. But this one is kind of touchy. There's a lot of gray stuff in the second one. Privacy and security, that's a really kind of important one as well, because depending on what kind of information you collect in your app, that can trigger problems. Monetization, store listing and promotion, families, is your app designed for families, enforcement, updates, and other resources. So let's go through the restricted content first. Okay. So in restricted content, the first one is sexually explicit content. Now, it is not like you cannot make an app that has sexually explicit content. It's just that it has to be declared to have that kind of content. Okay, because then parents can lock out their phones of the children and say, okay, you cannot install these apps. So it just has to be declared. Yep.
So apps can have.
Oh, actually, it says that we don't allow apps that contain or promote this kind of content. Okay, so that's actually they're actually excluding that sort of app just entirely. Even with a declaration, it won't do it.
Oh, that.
Did I answer the question? Okay, very good. So that means it is just not even allowed. Okay. And let's look at the second one. Child. Google has zero tolerance against child sexual abuse imagery because that's actually illegal. Okay, so if Google does not enforce these rules or do not make it clear, they can get sued. Okay. Violence. We don't allow apps that depict or facilitate gratuitous violence or other dangerous activities.
Not all video games.
Well, it has some examples, okay? Graphic depictions or descriptions of realistic violence or violent threats to any person or animal. So the question is, does this include virtual, characters, or does it only include like actual, people or actual animals?
I think realistic is the trick here. Because then like that phone game where you have to try to cross the road and your chicken gets hit by a car, that doesn't count because it's all blocks and is clearly cartoony style. I think.
Okay. But that's kind of gray because it depends on the interpretation now. The second clause is terrorist groups documenting their attacks. Now this is kind of interesting because this is very specific. So I'm pretty sure they put this in recent years because of international politics. Okay, I'm not going to name the organizations. Okay, I'm not going to say whether their cause is just or not. I'm just going to say that there are recent international political activities that probably trigger this because somebody did it. Okay, somebody probably made an app so that they can promote or document their attacks. Note how this does not include U.S. Army, U.S. Marine, and most legitimate forces. Which I find is kind of interesting because it seems like they're okay with that. Let's say you are a Marine, sergeant. You want to make an app, so that you can hook up your body cam and record. I'm going to record, this particular mission and put it on the web. It may not, trigger any one of these.
But it will trigger some things inside the army, right? Because
Inside what?
Inside for that Marine, if he's inside this organization, the actual army, because they have restrictions by themselves.
That is correct. The army may have rules against that.
And even using social media and stuff, they have a lot. I would think a lot of restrictions.
That may be the case. I have never served in the services, so I don't know the answer to that particular question.
Think so. In Ukraine, they have a lot of restrictions,
Okay.
Or police and.
But from my perspective, it would be better off not to specify terrorist groups and just say documentation of any attacks to make it kind of more blanket, so that you don't get into the fine line of defining what is terrorist and what is not terrorist. You just basically you cannot use your app to document attacks and publish those. Just period, right? Instructions for engaging in violent activities, including bomb or weapon making. Now this is also kind of there are borderline stuff that may or may not apply. What about paintball?
What?
Or paintball? Paintball or airsoft? Because those things are supposed to look realistic, just so that people can sort of experience the whole thing, but without actually getting shot, right? So it may or may not be classified as instruction, okay? Because let's say you want to write an app, and you have all of these, indoor, gaming areas, and your app is really just saying, okay, this is a good place to hide. This is where you can do some sniping from this angle, and we are talking about airsoft range, okay? So we're talking about 30 yards, 40 yards, where the other person, if they dress properly, would not even feel the pain. They would feel that they are hit by a plastic ball, but they won't even feel the pain. But would that be classified as instruction for engaging in violent activities? Because after all, you are aiming your airsoft gun to somebody and fire the shot, right? So
I would think probably not.
Really gray. I would say it's gray. It's gray.
You're still learning tactical maneuvers.
Exactly, you're still learning the tactical maneuvers, especially in an indoor setting. So you can easily, somebody can take that and apply that to actual firearm. Okay, what if you're dealing with a police situation and you are writing an app to help train SWAT teams? Would that be restricted as well? Because is that violent? Okay,
Well, defensive activities,
Yeah.
But that's a fine line. That's really splitting hair, right? It is really splitting hair. Instructions on how to commit suicide. Now that is also kind of strange because it is. Is it legal in California now?
It was legal now.
It is legal now. I think it passed, right?
To commit suicide?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
What does that
For
mean?
medical reasons, people who are terminally ill.
Not suicide.
What?
Yeah, how to kill yourself by eating 50
How
cheeseburgers.
can you make it illegal?
Helping somebody kill
Stop.
himself is legal.
And apps that promote self-harm. I mean, that is really, really great, okay? So I think some of these is really here just to, so that Google can cover its rear end. I mean, that's about it. So that when something does happen, Google can say, well, we told people not to do it. Because, promote self-harm is really great. I mean, it doesn't define.
But,
What?
but if they didn't remove the app in the right time, who will be responsible?
I mean, that's really great. I mean, the self-harm is really, really great.
Yeah, what if it's like a comedic app, though? That's
Sorry,
all.
say again?
What if it's like a comedic app?
I can't hear
Or
that.
like if an app just like isn't like serious,
Uh-huh.
like it just doesn't take itself serious, but somehow some people see it as promoting
Right.
self-harm.
Like they have all the life hacks, like different
Yeah.
things that are really stupid to do, but they put a picture of them.
Yep.
Sticking a fork in electrical outlet cures brain cancer.
Like a dare.
Yeah. So that's
Well, but
awesome.
even an app that that tells people how to do is it downhill mountain biking? Those people who go to those skiing resorts in the summer and they just go down like really steep and rocky kind of slope.
Yeah, I saw on the bicycle.
As far as I'm concerned, that's self-harm.
It's so dangerous.
But some people say no, it's fun. It's entertainment. It's a sport. Okay, any type of hunting can be considered as quote unquote, can potentially be self-harm if you don't do it correctly, and violent at the same time for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I
Yep.
know.
So kind of, so this is kind of, I would say there are apps that are really borderline. Okay, bullying and harassment. We don't allow apps that contain or facilitate threats, harassment, or bullying. And here are some examples. Apps with user-generated content that lack sufficient safeguard against threats, harassment, or bullying, particularly toward minors. What about Google Hangout?
What?
Well, Google Hangout can facilitate. But I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, you cannot have a communication app that is good enough in terms of filtering, so that any form of harassment is automatically filtered.
Block.
You can try to block. I mean, there are a lot of chat engines. Chat engines can actually look for swear words and stuff like that. People just find ways to get around it. They misspell the word.
Yeah.
They use some other way to mean exactly the same thing without using words. Okay. So I think this is really just Google trying to make sure that legally people cannot sue it because of the lack of these particular policies. Posts, comments, or photos within an app that are primarily intended to harass or single out another person for abuse, malicious attack, or ridicule. Well, anything that has feedback, can be used for that purpose. Hate speech. We don't allow apps that advocate against groups of people based on their race or ethnic origin, religion, disability, gender, age, nationality, veteran status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So the key word here is the app has to advocate. The app itself has to advocate, and not the people who are using the app advocating, utilizing the app itself. Okay? So an app that is titled KKK probably would kind of fall into this category.
Like round
them up.
Whoever they are.
Yeah. But this one is a little bit better because it says the app itself has to advocate. Okay, it's not just a way of communicating and then people can abuse it. Sensitive events. We don't allow apps that lack reasonable sensitivity towards or capitalize on a natural disaster, atrocity, conflict, death, or other tragic event.
So you can't make like a tribute to Prince app because he's capitalizing on his death? Right?
It seems that way. I mean, it's certainly a death, okay, and to
So
most,
it's a lack sensitivity.
yeah. Well, but what is reasonable sensitivity in this case? Okay, it doesn't say. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff here that is really kind of soft and a little gray. Okay, up to the interpretation of individuals. Okay. Gambling. Now this one has a lot more, it's lengthier because there are actual laws regarding gambling. We don't allow content or services that facilitate online gambling, including but not limited to online casinos, sports betting, lotteries, or games of skill that offer prices of cash or other values. We allow gambling ads as long as they meet the following requirements. Okay, so I have a question about this part. Or games of skill that offer prizes of cash or other value. Pokemon Go.
There are cash prizes for Pokemon Go.
Or other value. So with Pokemon Go, you can collect the eggs, right? So, but you can also do in-app purchase for the resources like incubators and whatnot. So that means if you are skilled and you can go to more Pokestops and collect stuff, then you will basically have prizes that has cash value. Because otherwise you can also pay cash to get the same stuff. So Pokemon Go technically would actually fall into this category.
Oops.
Yep.
They could have cleared it up by saying like maybe like any other like any non-digital currencies or something.
Bitcoin.
Something like that.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So we allow gambling ads as long as they meet the following requirement. Local laws comply with all applicable laws and industry standards for any location gambling ads. Has to meet local licensing requirement. But local is local to what? This is a mobile app. We're not talking about a billboard that does not move. Okay? So once you are no longer local to quote unquote local, are you breaking the law? Underage users. App does not display gambling ad to individuals known to be under the age of 18. App is not a part of the Design for Family program. App does not target individuals under the age of 18 as its primary intended audience. So once again, this is really hard to say. It's really hard to determine whether you're targeting those people or not. Just because of the selection of color is mostly bright, high saturated colors. Can someone say that because of the color selection that your ad is targeting the individuals under the age of 18? Really great stuff. Reasonable gambling. Landing page of the ad clearly displays information about responsible gambling. And an app classification. App is not a simulated gambling app. An entertainment app without real money gambling. In parentheses.
So it's still talking about gambling ads at that point? It would be an ad for another app?
These are ads, gambling ads, as long as the ads, I would assume this they is referring to gambling ads. So the gambling ad has to meet the following requirement. So the ad, so this is not, it doesn't make sense because this is the app itself.
I don't think they took very much time writing their developer policies.
They need to hire more lawyers. Here are some examples of common violations. Apps that allow a user to wager in order to earn real money. Kids123 app has an ad promoting gambling services. Okay, we have illegal. We don't allow apps that facilitate or promote illegal activities. Now this one is kind of really difficult to deal with too, because legality has to do with states. So there are certain things that are legal within one state, but it is illegal in another state. But this is a mobile app. So if you install the app legally within a state where whatever it is, the app is facilitating is actually legal within that state, the moment you cross the line between two states into the state where the same thing is not legal, you have a problem. So you don't have to cross country borders. You don't have to cross state borders where something is legal in one state and then it's not legal in the other state anymore. For instance, how to quickly load a magazine that has more than 10 shots. Okay, quick and easy, right? So that would be perfectly legal in Texas. But as soon as you cross the border, if you're flying back to California, as soon as you cross that airspace border, it suddenly becomes illegal because you cannot have magazines of more than 10 rounds to begin with. Okay, so I think a lot of these things are really just a lot of talking, but the actual enforcement, there's a lot of gray area, and also how they can actually enforce that. Because now your app needs to have a GPS sensor. You need a GPS. It will just disable certain features and go like, nope. This is according to the GPS. This app is now in a region where this is illegal. Your app will cease functioning until you are out of this region.
That would work, right?
Huh?
Would it be okay?
That would be working. That would be fine if you disable your app or whatever part of it is actually illegal within that region.
Yeah, you need to know all the laws of all 50 states.
I mean, if you're making an app about something that is legal in some states, then you just need to make sure it's in those states.
Yep. And there are a lot of differences between states too.
That's why it is safer to work for a company.
Yeah, don't make a paid poker app.
Their own lawyers.
Yep. A lot of this stuff is actually new. I mean, this is not this stuff. A lot of this was not in the original policies. They added a lot of this stuff. As time goes on. Yep. User-generated content. Apps that contain or feature user-generated content must take additional precautions in order to provide a policy-compliant app experience. Okay, a policy-compliant app must define content that is objectionable and prohibit it via a term of use or policy document. So in other words, you're only using a policy to tell the end user you are not supposed to do blah, 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 but the app itself does not need to have the mechanism to make it not happen. Require users to agree to your product's term of use before submitting content. Okay, so it's just a checkbox. So if the user does not read the actual agreement and just click yes, I agree, then it's on the end user. Okay, but your app has to give the end user that box before the end user turns in submit the content. Implement a user-friendly system for reporting abuse that effectively remove content in violation of your terms. So the question is, who is going to go over these reports and determine what can or should be removed? Okay, so that's a big question, right? Because somebody has to do this. Now, if your app has a wide installation, you can be getting hundreds, if not more, of these reports every single day. You can have opposing groups, complaining against each other out of really trivial little things, and somebody has to go over every single one of those and decide whether to remove the content or not. So this can potentially be a big thing if your app facilitates communication of any kind amongst the end users. then you have to kind of look into this and go like, okay, do I have the necessary infrastructure to deal with this? Remove or block abusive users of your service. Okay, that's on the developer. Provide correct categorization and IARC rating for your app. And you can look up IARC. I like it when they say groundbreaking, global rating and age classification system for digitally delivered games and apps that reflect the unique culture differences amongst the nations and regions. That's exactly my reaction. Okay, let's watch this. And I need to switch my speaker to that. Just give me a second. It's this kind of thing that really kind of turn people away from publishing apps, because no matter what you do, they seem to be able to get you. Somebody can get you.
Games and apps virtually anywhere. But each region has its own standards, or in some cases
Yeah, let
even
me start
laws,
from the beginning.
for digital games and apps is exploding. Across devices and across the globe. With just one click, developers can publish their games and apps virtually anywhere. But each region has its own standards, or in some cases even laws, about what type of content is right for which ages, which can make getting a game or app rated very complicated and time-consuming. The International Age Rating Coalition, or IARC, was designed to change all that. Now, instead of submitting a digital game or app to different rating agencies across the globe, developers can just use IARC. For developers, it's a simple one-step process. They complete an IARC questionnaire in a participating storefront's developer portal and immediately receive ratings from various territories around the world, which are then displayed next to their game or app, so that parents looking for age-appropriate games or apps to download can continue to rely on familiar and credible sources reflecting their region's cultural norms. With IARC, everyone's a winner: the developers, the storefronts, and especially the families who rely on ratings to help choose their games and apps. To learn more, go to globalratings.com.
There you have it. Very upbeat music in the background. Any questions about IARC? IARC. No, no questions? Is anyone going to look into this?
Maybe someday.
Maybe.
Become a game developer.
Maybe someday. Well, it's not just for games too. I mean, it's for any type of app development.
Yes. I think the apps that I would write would always probably go under E for everyone. So I don't know. Probably be pretty quick and easy to go through that process.
Okay, well, this is a big one too, intellectual property. Now, impersonation is probably pretty easy to define, but theft of intellectual property is a big one. Okay, because as individual developers, you do not have a team of lawyers. Okay, now why would that be a big thing? Let's say you wrote an app, it's really highly successful, it's really useful, and a software company, a larger software company decides, hey, I want a piece of that pie too. And you are the dominant app, your app is the dominant app in that particular market segment, and the big company decides, I don't want to have to waste my resources to develop the entire thing to compete with you. So how can a large software publisher take you out from the competition? Unfairly. No, they don't even need to do that. They just file claims that you are stealing their intellectual properties. Even though there's no ground, no basis whatsoever that you have done that, all they have to do is to file paperwork that says that you have done that, and force you to go to court. Okay,
To defend yourself.
to defend yourself, because they are making the claim and say that, oh, TAC, you are you're infringing on 67 of our patents, and this is from a company with like 3,000, 4,000 patents. Okay, so they just randomly pick 67 and say, TAC, you are infringing on these particular patents. Some of these patents may not even apply to software. Maybe it's a mechanical kind of thing. But how do I respond to that? Well, I cannot not respond to it, right? I have to respond to it, which means it would take time for me to go to the court, to deal with the documentation, deal with all that stuff. Now, maybe for these 67, I will be able to clear every single one after 2 months of time, a lot of time to prepare the documents, a lot of time to go to the court, to talk to the judge. I clear these 67. And then whatever company is trying to take me out from competition now says, oh, maybe those 67 patents are fine. Now here's another 100 patents. I think you're infringing on one of these, on all of these 100 patents. And then they just keep doing this until I run out of money, I run out of time, and run out of patience. So this is a big thing, okay? Because intellectual property is something that you would think is helping the individual small developer, but large developers, the bigger companies, actually use this as a weapon to take out the small guys. Okay? So it says right here, we do not allow apps or developer accounts that impersonate other entities, brands, or otherwise infringe on intellectual property rights of others, including trademark, copyright, patent, trade secret, and other other proprietary rights. So this is where people can, larger companies can get you. The first two is not a big concern. Trademark, just avoid it. Okay. Copyright, just avoid it. Just do not use the source code of somebody else. But patents is really kind of fuzzy. Okay. Because you have to. There are only certain courts and certain judges and certain lawyers that can deal with real patent infringements. Trade secret is even more fuzzy, okay? Because you write your app. Okay, let's say you wrote a potluck app, okay, like what we said, okay. So you wrote a potluck app that uses a particular algorithm to find the best fit of stuff, okay. So you let people express their preferences and so on and so forth, and then you also combine that with rating from the past of how those people have been rated for potlucks and whatnot, and you have a way to combine all that stuff to make best fit for who should bring what to a potluck. A company can come in and say, oh, you're using our trade secret, when there's actually no trade secret. Okay, they can just claim that and then take you to court. So this is something that you have to be careful about when you are an individual developer and publishing your app. We also don't allow apps that encourage or induce infringement of intellectual property rights. Okay, we will respond to clear notices of alleged copyright infringement. For more information or to file a DMCA request, please visit our copyright procedures. Now the DMCA is a topic all on its own. Okay, does anyone know what is the DMCA? It doesn't really spell out the entire name, but do you know what it is?
Digital Media Copyright Act?
The Digital Millennium Copyright Act is correct. Okay, but it also says a lot of things. Okay, so it's not really just about copyright. The DMCA also makes it illegal for any attempt to circumvent copy protection mechanisms. So if your app has any type of math or suggestions or algorithms to tell people how to circumvent copy protection mechanisms, it will fall into this category. It can potentially be taken out of the app market. All right, well, we're running out of time. Bob just popped his head in. So I'll be over at the lab for any further discussion on this, or you guys can just work on your projects. But don't worry about your own project, because as long as we are not publishing anything, it's okay.